What David had done was wrong, and the Lord sent the prophet Nathan to David. Nathan began by telling David a story. There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveller came to the rich man, but the rich man did not take one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveller who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel. I gave you all Israel and Judah. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? Now therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "By doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord. Now the son born to you will die." The Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had borne to David, and he became ill. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted and spent the nights lying in sackcloth on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused. He would not eat any food with them. On the 7th day the child died. All David could do was comfort Bathsheba. He was consumed with guilt and cried out to the Lord to have mercy on him and forgive him. "Have mercy on me, O God. Against you, you only, have I sinned and done this evil in your sight. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my evil deeds. Cast me not away from your presence. The sacrifices of God are a broken heart, a broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." Some time later, Bathsheba gave birth to another baby, a boy, whom they named Solomon. Solomon was to be the next king of Israel. While Jesus was being interrogated by the high priest, Peter was still sitting outside in the courtyard with the servants. He was shivering with cold despite the fire, and overawed by his surroundings. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." He denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, You also are one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Without doubt, this fellow was with him. He's a Galilean. Listen to the way he talks." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the cock crowed. At the same time, the Lord himself was being brought out, his hands bound. He turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Since the Jews did not have the authority to put anyone to death, they bound Jesus and took him to the Roman governor, Pilate. When Pilate asked why Jesus had been brought to him, the high priest shouted, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar. He claims to be Messiah, a king." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Those are your words," Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." But they insisted, "He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here." "Galilee? Does he come from Galilee? Then take him to the ruler of Galilee. Let Herod deal with this man." When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He asked him many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him and sent him back to Pilate in a purple robe. So now, what was Pilate to do? Questions. Question 1. How did the prophet Nathan open David's understanding about the wrong he had done? Question 2. Why did he do it this way? Question 3. What was Peter's reaction when Jesus was brought out of the high priest's house through the courtyard? Question 4. Why did the Jewish leaders take Jesus to Pilate, the Roman governor? Practical. We still today use the words which David used when he was so sorry for the bad thing he had done. We know it as Psalm 50 or 51. When the priest or deacon comes out to cense the church, see if you can hear him quietly saying the words of this psalm. It is also used in many services of the church.